Hello everybody, Hellcrex here, and welcome to another Mercenary Thoughts from an Inner Sphere, episode 390. Today we're going to be talking about the 65-ton mech, the Jinggau, from the Capellans. Yeah, they actually put together a pretty decent heavy mech for what all the bells and whistles they put on it. To be honest, I have never ever seen a Jinggau on the tabletop in conventions or anything. It's one of those mystery mechs that, yeah, I know it exists, but no one ever plays it. Mostly because, I guess if you don't play Capellans very much, then you're probably not going to see this thing. The other is that the first time I seen the model for this, I was like, ugh. Like, they could have done a better job. So with the plastics, yeah, maybe the plastic will look a heck of a lot better, like the cover art or something. So I see some variant art on it, and like, yeah, that looks pretty good. I'd go for that. But the metal model, no, not at all. But all right, let's get into it. The Jinggau, 65 tons, is a 585. Yes, you have a 585 65-ton mech, so it's mobile. It gets around, so it's kind of a cavalry-style mech. It has Indo steel and XL engines. That's the drawback of it. That's why it's 65. You know, at 65 you can get that 585 movement because, you know, you throw in some XL engines and it can pick up some speed. All right, and then with Indo steel you're cutting, you know, basically 3 tons off this mech to be able to play around with it. Now, if it was clan, you know, you probably could put like a machine gun or something, but no, you don't have that. So yeah, and then it has 13 double heat sinks, which are not too bad. It has 11.5 tons of slab armor. Nothing special about that, which is, I think, about 1.5 tons short of maximum. I do believe, let's see, yeah, if you added 1.5 tons, you'd be roughly almost maxed out the armor. So, it could have done that. And then we have a plethora of weapon systems. In the right arm, we have a Gauss rifle with 2 tons of ammunition in the right torso. All right, no case at all. So if you hit the Gauss rifle, boom, and it gets just transferring 20 points of damage someplace. Then in the right arm, we have a medium pulse laser, which is like, you look at the rest of the weapon system, you're like, a medium pulse laser? Huh. Why is it that way? Then we have 4 ER medium lasers in the left arm, jump jets in the center torso, and then 2 in the right and left leg. It basically kind of screams to me a fast cavalry style mech that is, you know, for the inner sphere. Now, you know, if you had like a linebacker or something, it's like that thing would probably own this, but it's like the concept of a linebacker trying to be used. Now, when the clans get their hands on these things, which we'll talk about in a little bit, from the Hell Horses, they actually kind of turn this thing into a nasty beast. But until that point, so you got a Gauss rifle that does 15-point shot block someplace, and you know, that's a lot of tonnage that you're wrapping up in this thing to be able to do, you know, that amount of damage. I don't mind having Gauss rifles, and you know, they have their uses, but a lot of times I like, would a ERPPC have been a better choice? I can understand why they went with the Gauss rifle. You know, it's a difference of 1, and you're gaining the 5 points of damage, but if you went with an ERPPC, you gain 1 range, and you lose 5, but you actually have a lot of space left over for throwing in. Heck, you could probably go with 2 ERPPCs for that matter, and then, you know, put the rest into a couple more heat sinks, and, you know, then your damage output would be, you know, a little bit better, you know. So things that I think about, you know, that's kind of like, but with the Gauss rifle, you got a mech that you can move around the flanks pretty good and hit targets. If you do hit them, you hit a light or medium mech with a 15-point shot, they're going to know it, and they're not going to like you. Most heavies can probably take a hit like that, but most of their armor is going to be gone. So it's really good for stripping off and putting a big hole into somebody, and even having a chance to go crit hunting on the first hit, which I don't mind a Gauss rifle. I like them. But if I had a choice between a clan ERPPC and a Gauss rifle, I'm taking the ERPPC, you know, if I had a clan option. So I go that route. But if you don't, you know, it's one of the better hitting intersphere weapon systems other than AC-20, and I'd rather take a Gauss rifle over an AC-20 any day. Your damage output is actually a little bit better because you can sit out a little bit farther range and do more hits with it comparatively. Yeah, when you get close, the AC-20 is good, like, hey, I'm here, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't like getting hit by the thing. But in one of my last games, actually last 2 games, I had a LBX 20 on a mech, and I think I fired 12 shots and only hit once with it. So that's a lot of tonnage wrapped up sometimes with something that never hits. So you never know what you're going to get with a game. So then you got the 4 ER medium lasers on board. Yeah, you can basically run this mech, fire the Gauss rifle, fire the ERs, and you're not going to worry about heat at all. You know, that's the nice thing about this mech. And then if you throw in the pulse laser, and then that's when you start, or you can jump. It's that pulse laser that suddenly is the kind of the quirky thing that that goes into the mix. You're like, does it really fit? I understand if you're using the jump jets, you add a weapon system. If you get in close, you're able to hit with it a little better because you don't get the minuses with that. But in some ways, I'd rather just flop that thing out for a flamer and add that extra tonnage and add either another ER medium laser and go that route. You know, that's kind of my thought process that goes through my head when I'm looking at this thing. And I'd rather have something that can handle a little bit of infantry situations or just cook things. Yeah, it's like a lot of games, if you ever watch our videos, you know, I put out, it's like, we're pyrotechnica. You know, it's like we're a bunch of pyros. We like burning things, catching things on fire, causing havoc, that nature. And Flamer's like, hey, all right, let's go with that. But when you get in close, you can fire those ER medium lasers and that Gauss rifle and still run, for that matter, and not worry about the heat. It's when you start throwing the jump jets into it. As I say, you jump 5, fire the ER medium lasers and the Gauss rifle. Then you look at it and go, huh, let's see, that's 5 plus 1 and plus 20 is 26. It's well balanced. It's when you throw in that medium pulse laser is when you start worrying about the heat problem with this mech. So that's why I say it's kind of like you look at it and go, huh, all right, I'd rather have a flamer. That's my thought process that goes through my head. So yeah, it's not a bad mech. You just go around the flanks with this thing and you punch holes. Now, if you have somebody out in front of you that may be attracting some attention away from this mech, yeah, that would probably be the best thing you could do. You know, because the big issue I have is, you know, it does have XL engines. And if you look at, let me bring up the data sheet here. Yeah, you got 24 armor in the torsos. So it can handle, you know, if you send a Gauss round downrange or you get hit with an AC-20, it can handle those. But it's after that, that's when you really start worrying about it. It's pretty well armored for the most part, even if it is a 1.5 tons short of pretty much maxing that thing out. And if you did that, you know, you're looking at another, 24 armor that can be spread out amongst the locations. So it could be 26 or or the 20 on, say, what's the internal structure? Yeah, you could put 20 on the arms. And to be honest, I'd rather have more armor on my arms and torsos. You know, legs, not so much, not to worry about too much. I think you can get 24 or 30. You can put 30 on it. So it's just roughly telling you that it could have a lot more armor. And it's one of the things I just look at it as like, I probably want to shepherd this thing a little bit more, to have something out in front of it to prevent those XLs from being taken out pretty quickly. Because if I see, it's like in most games that we see, we look at a XL mech, and we're like, it suddenly just, it's like a fire magnet. And we look at it like, just throw everything at it, including the kitchen sink, and if we can take a torso out, and it's like, oh, it's done. Move on to the next one. And that's a thought process that goes through my head. And you look at the standard configuration here of this mech, and you look at the torsos, like you hit the left torso and you get 3 crits, it's dead. That's all you have in that torso is 3 engine hits. And you look in the right torso, you got 3 engine plus the 2 Gauss tons, which are no big deal. You hit the Gauss rounds, you know, like that's like hitting inert steel. It's just something, but you have, you know, what, a 1 in 5, then you'd have a 1 in 4, then you have a 1 in 3 shot of hitting an XL engine slot. So I look at this mech and you're like, yeah, okay, you focus in on a flank and you focus all the fire into that flank, you're probably going to kill this mech pretty quickly. You know, because you get any type of crits, it just goes right on in. You know, if you don't take out the torso to begin with. Because, you know, you're looking at 15 plus 24, you know, you do 39 points of damage, 2 AC-20 hits into that torso, and it's gone. You know, it's like sayonara. So that's one thing you got to think about. But with the mech, I like the mobility. You know, anytime you can throw jump jets on a mech like this, I like it, because then I'm able to get around, move on to type of terrain. It's like, hey, I can jump 5 and then get into like some woods or something, and then you know, you get yourself some mods on that thing. It's like, hey, I'm gonna go after and shoot an easier target type of thing. Even if you and then the other thing you look at is like, if you find some heavy wood someplace, yeah, you may not think about moving it. You know, set it up as a fire platform and shoot with that Gauss rifle. And then put a decent pile in it with some good gunnery. Now, the one thing is, it's got like 2,072 battle value. And if you do put a decent pilot in it with some good gunnery, yeah, then you're really starting to up the battle value on this thing. So that's one thing you have to really think about, which may be a reason why you don't see this thing very often. It's kind of spendy with the way it's set up. So that's one thing you have to think about. Now, there are a few other versions of this mech. Let's see, the first one came out in 3059. And then they came out with a new one later on, the Jihad. This one is kind of, I like this one in a lot of ways. This is the 7L version. It comes in with 2,137 battle value, so it's even a little more spendy. But it's the same mech, but you have 2 plasma rifles in the right arm. All right, so you're replacing the Gauss rifle with a couple plasma rifles. They only go out to 15, but they do 10 damage. So that's harkens back to the concept I was telling you about before. Replacing the Gauss rifle with a couple ERPPCs. This is doing the same thing, but with plasma rifles. And then taking that extra tonnage, and they threw some heat sinks on this thing. So a couple more, so it's got 30. Dissipation possibility, so you got 15 times 2. There you go, 30. And then it carries around a battery in the left arm of 6 medium lasers. Just a bog standard medium laser. So And so now you're 585 with really a bunch of short-range weapon systems. So that tells me this is thinking of cityscape, you know, going into close quarters battle. Yeah, it's like you don't want to meet this thing in a dark alley someplace, because this is almost like running into a sway back. You know, you hit it and it's like, all right, it's like at range, 10 to 15, you're always going to throw the plasma rifles down range. Now, when you get into that 7 to 9 range, you probably will still look at it and go, huh, I'm going to be firing 2 plasma rifles. That's 30 heat or 20 heat plus, you know, what if you're, say you run, that'd be 22, that leaves you 8 left. I'd probably throw 3 medium lasers downrange. Just, you know, do that for a few turns. For heat dissipation, you know, you're going up a little bit. But, you know, that's kind of like the sweet spot when you start moving into the short range stuff. Now, if I get into the short and medium range with those medium lasers, I am throwing those things in. That's 100%. I'll probably shut off a plasma rifle. Then I'm going in at 30 damage, or not 30 damage, but 30 heat, because if I'm running and I fire 6 medium lasers and a plasma rifle, you're looking at 28, 30 altogether, and you dissipate 30, so you're not going anywhere on the heat scale. But once again, it's got the same problem that you have with the previous version of those torsos, so it could get focused down. Now, if you shoot an arm off this thing, you're really denuded of any type of weapon system really quick. And you can't think of your arms as a blade of armor in this thing, because it's got the same concept as the clans, where they throw everything in the arms. And if you shoot an arm off in most clan mechs, you just cut their firepower in half really quickly. It's like, they have advantages, and this is like one of the major disadvantages. So I probably would have thought about throwing a couple of those medium lasers instead of the arm. I would have tossed them in the torso. At least I'd have something to send down range in case I lose some arms. You know, spread those weapon systems out, because you got an open spot in your head and you got an open spot in the center torso and 2 in the left torso with this design the way it is. So there's that. Now, the 2 open spots in the right torso, once again, are being taken up by plasma rifle ammo. So, there you go. Those are really a major concern if they get hit. So, that's not a problem. Now, once again, this is like, I always think of this as kind of like when I'm reading this, like I said, it's like a sway back. So you got to think about, what am I going to do with this thing? You know, you're going to get in close quarters with this thing and just open up with it, and then start hammering away. If you get with the hit with the 6 medium lasers and a plasma rifle, yeah, you're doing 40 damage. That's pretty decent amount of damage, and that's kind of like a crit hunter, or just scraping a ton of armor off somebody. And you know, they're not going to be liking you. So, but you're not usually running a mech like this by itself against another mech by itself. You know, you're going to be running with a bunch of lance mates. So yeah, it probably could scrape a mech off the table, depending on which ones are firing. And in this case, it probably will be the middle mech that would be firing, because you know, it's a bunch of 5-point shots, which would tear off some good chunks of armor. And I would probably go that route, you know, and then follow up with something if it has any SRMs or, you know, of that nature. And it's kind of like your crit hunter mech. You know, go down that, or something that has an LBX 10 or something, that would be, all right, they're going last, they're going to shotgun, bam, you know, hit a bunch of 1-pointers, you know, with all the holes that are open. You know, maybe you can crit the mech to death. You know, that's kind of the thought that goes through my head while I'm running a lance together. Or a star, you know, depending on what side you're on the aisle. Then they have the, let's see, is this the, they got the Jinggau CC version. This one is kind of an interesting one. This comes in at 1,709 battle value, a little cheaper, but the reason it's a little cheaper, it's a 5.80. They got rid of the jump jets, but it has mask on board and stealth armor. So, yeah, with the stealth armor, you have to have ECM with that. So it comes with ECM and a beagle probe. And it still has the endo steel. So you now have something that's going to be better hidden out at long range. The heat sinks are 13 like the original. But now you have a variable speed pulse laser, a large, in the right arm. You got a snub nose PPC in the right arm. So both of those go out to 15. And obviously your damage output would be different and depending on what range bracket you are. And then you have 3 variable small pulse lasers in the left arm. So once again, all the weapons are in their arms. Your longest range weapon you have is a 15. But the damage is 7 and 5 at long range with those two. And then you got 9 and 8 and then 11 and 10. So if you get this thing up close, it's going to cause a bit of havoc on somebody, and they're going, oh, okay, this is not good. Then if you get within 6, obviously you're throwing in those variable speed pulse lasers. Heat output, you're looking at 29, plus the 2 for if you're running is 31. So you could go up 5 on the heat scale up close if you're firing everything. So that could be detrimental to you, but you got mask on board, so you can do every other turn do a burst of speed. I never recommend doing them 2 turns in a row, because my luck is the second turn that you use mask in a row, I always fail. I don't know what it is. It's like I'm cursed or something. Always seems to be that way. It's like, hey, just don't roll a snake eyes or a 3 or something. You roll snake eyes. Congratulations. Ah, crud. That type of thing. Well, let's see what damage I did to myself. So that's that version. It's interesting, but once again, this is gives me the feeling that you have with the previous version of something that's up close and personal. Even though the variable speed pulse lasers are nice, the damage is different, depending on range. But you get pulse lasers. Hey, I like that kind of stuff. Finally, they're getting some pulse lasers that actually kind of work for you. It's, a little heavier, but hey, you gotta like what you get. So that's those 3. There's a couple other here. Okay. Now, the next ones are Clan Hellhorse versions. Because Clan Hellhorse got their hands on, in 3078, got their hands on a bunch of these things. And they're like, hey, we kind of like them. They kind of like a linebacker. So they just refurbished them and rebuilt them with Clan Tech. So, yeah. So they have the one that's like they got Clan double heat sinks instead of the Inner Sphere double heat sinks. That frees up a bunch of crit slots. They got 11 tons of Clan ferrofibrous armor, which really boosts the amount of heat, or not heat, but armor that you have. Then it has the 2, they keep the 2 plasma rifles, because the plasma rifles are not bad systems for what they do to you. Damage, and they say, hey, let's just throw some melted plastic at somebody. It's like melting and cause some heat and all that fun stuff. Then it replaces the left arm, now carries 6. Yeah, you're getting into the Blackhawk type of look here. You got 6 ER medium lasers and an ER small laser in the head. So those are Clan weapons. So it has some Clan tech on board. It's kind of a amalgamation of Inner Sphere and Clan tech that the Clan's running around with. And if you know anything about clan weapons, like the ERs, you hit the thing with 6 of those, that's 30 heat. And if it runs at 32, yeah, it's going up on the heat scale, but you're going to know it when you get hit. That's a lot of damage. That's scraping armor off. Typically, I probably only fire 5 of those things, but, you know, they do. It is what they do, you know. All right. Then they got the, let's see, that was a 7LR, and then they got the 8AR version, the second Hellhorse version. Similar to the other one, the weapons loadout remains essentially identical to the 8A, but now they're all clan weapons, and an ER small laser has been added to the head, and ECM in the center torso, and that comes in at 2730, and the other one was 2700. So a little more spendy, but you know, you got some decent weapons on board. So you got a clan Gauss rifle, and you have clan pulse laser and 4 clan ER medium lasers. And with the extra space you got left over, tonnage, you throw an ECM on board and an ER small. So yeah. So basically, they just took that mech and like, we're just going to swap the weapons out for what originally was on board and just make it a nastier beast. So, who's not to like about that? So, yeah, that's pretty much the, oh, there's another, let's see, this one. Oh, the Free Worlds, let's see, yeah, the Federated Sons and the Free Worlds League, they got their hands on some, and they replaced the Sumdos PPC of the CC is replaced by a Clan ER PPC. This comes in at 2058. So imagine the CC version with, you know, instead of Sumdos PPC, now you got an ER PPC. So, Clan grade, yeah. Like I said, because later in life, most of the Inner Sphere, they have access to clan tech, so you're going to see either specific, like say replacing a single weapon like an ERPPC with a clan ERPPC or something of that nature. I've seen a lot of that where, you know, you're playing games, one weapon system has been swapped out for some beefier clan stuff. So gotta like it. So that's it. That's kind of a long video, I believe. Yeah, you're looking at almost 28 minutes. Sorry, guys, but you know, I just started rambling on. All right, so that's the Jinggau. Not a bad mech. It has potential. Not very. I've never seen it on the table though. So somewhere out there in the wild, somebody's gonna say, "Hey, I've played with these things," or I had them on the tabletop. So. If you got any stories about them, let me know. Hope you guys like it. Like and subscribe, share with friends, and we'll see you in the next one. Valkyrex out.